Okay. Today we have Doc Yach and Ms. Ann Warzak from the J4NG program. Doc Yach, can you give us an introduction as to what office you represent?
So I'm the director of West Flamingo Animal Hospital, which is a 24-hour care animal hospital, but I also own something called Red Rock Animal Hospital and a place called Pet Health. And we have a couple of different companies. One's a surgical company that has a surgical specialist, and another one is an aquatic medicine and exotic animals, which we take care of places like the Shark Reef and the Las Vegas Springs Preserve and the Golden Nugget and things like that. My main place where I work, though, is West Flamingo.
West Flamingo, wow. And the Shark Reef. I've never visited that Shark Reef. I'm going to get there. I'm new to Vegas, but I will get to that Shark Reef.
Good.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Dr. Yap. Can you please tell us about your career path, and how you got
So, good question. So it's I was raised in Las Vegas.
started?
So I went to elementary school and high school here, and I went to University of Nevada, Reno as an undergraduate, and then I went to Colorado State University for veterinary school. So I don't know, I can't tell you, I was a normal kid like everybody else, played sports, played everything. I have a large family, 5 kids. We had lots of animals, but I was the only one that was guided towards veterinary medicine. And for whatever reason, I mean, we all caught lizards in the desert and had dogs and cats and things like that.
Yes.
But for whatever reason, that was something that I was attracted to, and who knows why exactly. And we all say, "Gosh, I always wanted to be a veterinarian," and for whatever reason, I'm sure there's a lot of them. That was something that I chose. It was a professional field. It was competitive. It was
Yes.
hard to get into. Those are things that, as animals, dealt with sciences and stuff like that. So there's lots of things that attracted me to it.
And Doc, would you say it was a passion when you were younger? Did you have a
Uh,
passion for the animals when you were younger?
yeah, I always had animals. So the answer is yes. So I had, dogs and cats and lizards, and we had horses
Mhm.
and a variety of things like that. So certainly always loved them. That doesn't mean you want to be a veterinarian necessarily, but
Mhm.
that may just mean that you always want to have animals in your life. But
Mhm.
for me, that was made it easier, as far as being a professional and saying, what could I do to help? What could this be a career path for me? And I also was a pretty mature kid. I was also thought about, as a professional, what could I do? What would be maybe a good position, a good job, a good career? Even when I probably seriously considered it when I was started in 8th or 9th grade, where I really
Really?
started saying the words veterinarian. Maybe that's something that would interest me.
8th or 9th grade.
Yeah.
Wow. Phenomenal. If we could just get the kids nowadays to think 8th and 8th grade, to kind of know the direction you want to go. That's phenomenal.
Well, yeah, but sometimes it's easy to have a driven path,
Hmm.
and but it doesn't mean the worst thing, because sometimes it's not available. Maybe if you wanted to be an airline pilot and you didn't have good vision, or something was wrong, you got, there are alternatives. And I even had one too. Even when I was in college, I said that if I could become a veterinarian, if I could not get into veterinary school, that I would probably fall back and become a medical doctor, a human medical doctor. That sounds second choice. That sounds terrible, but
No,
but
no,
but
no,
I but I
no.
wanted to be a veterinarian. Yeah.
It was the ultimate, but still, in the hindsight, it was still within that medical realm.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Yeah.
wasn't like
Sure.
you were going to school for the naught. You still
Right.
would have been some type of physician. You know what I mean? But that
Mm-hmm.
was phenomenal. Thank you so much. What challenges did you overcome to become that vet?
Um, I'd say I'd say the single biggest things as you're going through high school is knowing that you don't have to be the smartest kid in the class, but you have to work. I mean, that's it. You have to work. You have to study. You have to. Even for me, it wasn't critical that I got an A plus. It was critical that I knew the material, and that I
Exactly.
felt like I could I could understand what it was. And that worked. So it was working at school, and you don't learn how to be a veterinarian in high school, right? You learn about your basics, and your basics are, I learned how to communicate. I learned how to think. I learned how to
Mhm,
problem solve. I learned how to communicate in reading and writing and all
mhm.
those things you think like, I'll never use this stupid algebra. Um, and while I use lots of math in my field, I don't use algebra. And when I can joke about it and say, what a worthless class. And it wasn't. It was exceptionally important, and not because I learned algebra, it's because my brain got to problem solve. I learned how to figure
Exactly.
things out. I learned how to communicate, and that
Mhm,
development is so important. And so that helped me when I went into college and then into veterinary school. It helps me today. And
mhm.
so the education is important, and it's trying hard and putting in time for it. I have plenty of time to play. I work hard and I play hard, and
Exactly.
we can all do that. And and then the next challenge I'd say is financial. Looking at what college cost me and what veterinary school cost me. And I'm not from a wealthy background, and so there was lots of summer jobs. My parents helped me the best they
Mhm.
could. I begged, borrowed, and stealed, and tried so hard to get scholarships in any way I could, and assistance. And when I needed to, I actually borrowed money, like for our education. So
Exactly.
I tried to minimize the last thing. That was the last thing I did, meaning that I worked hard and did all those other things first and tried to get every scholarship I could. And then what I couldn't get, that's what I borrowed.
That's when you had to borrow, which was so
Mhm.
smart. Get the free money first, kids. Get all the free money that's, it is so much free money. If the kids would just tap into it.
Yeah.
Get the free first. And I like how you said you worked hard first. And it's not all about getting the A's. You don't have to be the straight A student. If you would just put the work into,
Mhm.
learn the material, you know,
Mhm.
you don't have to know it to the exact, but just get acknowledgement of what the material is. I love how you broke that down to us.
And,
Thank you
and,
so much.
I- and I'm going to say, I say this a lot to my clients and to everybody. I, I'm, I'm a pretty humble person, but I'm also a realist. I know I'm considered to be a smart guy, and people give me difficult cases, and I'm the one they go to for that. I know that,
Mhm,
and yet I would tell you that I'm not an exceptionally smart person. I'm a common sense, and I just know how to figure it out. I know how to work hard. I'm not brilliant. I don't have a photographic memory. I work hard to figure it out, and I could say I did the same thing. I started in high school. I didn't try real hard until I was in high school, to be quite frank with you. And but then I started trying even harder in college, and obviously in vet school as well. And you know what? I still try hard. So
exactly. And you're probably going to continue until your last breath, trying hard and working hard.
yeah,
Absolutely. And that financial, yes,
yeah.
I can see now when they say you work hard and play later as a doc, I can only imagine the play later part.
Mhm. But there's a balance. There's a
Of
balance.
course, you have to have that
Yeah,
balance.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What is the education requirement to be a vet after you get done with the higher education? You got your bachelor's, you got your master's, and then you're going on to medical school.
So you don't. It's not required that you get a master's. So for those kids who don't know it, so you graduate from high school,
Okay.
and then you go into a college, whether it's a 2-year college or a 4-year college, and then you're generally going to be put on a path. You can. Most people are going to get some sort of Bachelor of Science degree or Bachelor of Biology or something like that. But that being said, you could get a Bachelor of Music, but you have to take certain classes that are also be required if you want to be a doctor or a veterinarian, and those are going to be science classes or whatever. But there's going to be a mixture that are going to be common classes, but some that are unique to that field. So what you graduate with is important, but what more important is what classes and what a veterinary school would require as a bare minimum of what it is. And generally speaking, it's going to be a Bachelor of Science degree. And some people, I mean, they're going to apply to veterinary school at that point, like a medical doctor. You get a 4-year degree in college, and then you apply to that college, hopefully get accepted. And many people are not accepted.
Hopefully you have those prerequisites that they're requiring.
Yeah. The prerequisites are a no if and ors. And
that's my background. I know about those prereqs.
Yeah. And if you get accepted, that's great. If you don't, then you know what, you're back at school and you're going to do it again next year. And maybe you don't get in for a few years, and you do the next thing. Maybe you say, you know what, I didn't do that great in college. I'm going to get a master's, or I'm going to get something extra to make myself look even more outstanding, so on and so forth. So yeah, so those are guys that sometimes come in as more mature students, or some people don't go to college until they're a little older, and that's okay. And the whole thing is it's competitive. You can't just go to school for 4 years and then assume you're going to get into med school or vet school. Then you apply, and you're it's a competition for so many spaces, and so you're competing against people all over the country or your state, depending on where you're at, and hopefully they choose you. And that's based on not just your school, but it's based on your other things, and those other things are important, like work experience, volunteering, summer jobs,
so they look at all that when you applying for vet school?
Did I what?
Or med school? Did they go by your volunteering, your work experience? Did they look at all of that?
Yeah, so they do, and they all have their own formula. They may say, listen, our hardest part is the academics. So I'm just going to make this up. They might say that we're going to base your entry on 80% that, and 10% your work experience, and 10% your interview, and 10% your whatever, So there's a formula there. But yeah, they do.
They construct it on.
It's a package. You can't be a brain and get in, and you can't communicate, but you can take tests really well. So that probably wouldn't be a great veterinarian.
So you have to have some kind of a complete package. You got to be, a percentage in all of the areas, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well-rounded.
I mean, that's kind of blatantly understood with going into that medical world, because you got to be able to know. I apologize. The mailman is here and the dog is barking. I do apologize.
No problem. You'll get a lot more of that in my place. On my door for you.
You know about it, Doc.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for answering that one. I have two more, and this one is right before my last question. Yes, I'm sorry, babe. I should have said that. What other jobs are available at the vet office, and what are the education requirements?
So not everybody's the veterinarian, right? So we, we have a huge hospital. We have 50 employees here. So it starts with receptionists, which are probably the most important person for me. I mean, they're not just somebody who picks up the phone. And their knowledge is immense. They take care of financial stuff. They know when pets need certain things and reminders, and dealing with people who are stressed, and their loved one, their dog or their cats, a serious, maybe a life-threatening injury, and they have to deal with that. And it is an incredible job. And so receptionists to technicians, and technicians range anywhere from licensed technicians to unlicensed technicians, which those are who help us. Those would be the nurses, if you will. And just like in human terms, there's specialty nurses and then just nurses aides.
Really?
So a technician assistant would be somebody who gets a job, and they usually started with just being in a kennel, kennel attendants who take care of our pets and walk our dogs and feed them and clean after them and give them baths and stuff like that.
Wow.
To that person has worked their way up into be an assistant who now helps with either a licensed technician or a veterinarian in holding an animal or doing procedures, simple things like taking a blood sample or doing an X-ray, and then the licensed tech. And licensed technicians generally, depending on what state you're licensed in, I think in the state of Nevada, you have to have a high school graduation, and then you can go in a 2 or a 4-year program that is a technician program. And then just like being a veterinarian or a doctor, you have to graduate and then pass a test. Dang it.
So it
And
is
then,
a bar to pass
yep.
one
And
in order
so
to get to.
license, yeah. So licensed technicians do a lot. They put IVs in. They're just like, EMTs and nurses. They put IVs in. They administer drugs. They draw blood samples. They do a lot. I mean, they help us
Mhm.
in surgery sometimes. They
Oh
monitor.
wow.
They do an incredible, invaluable to us. They all are. Everybody is. But those are those are in a vet clinic setting. That being said, you realize the field of veterinary medicine is more than that. There are people
Mhm.
who um, meat inspectors. I mean, that's
Mhm.
the boring thing for me, but there's somebody who's a veterinarian, a meat inspector. There's people who work at like the Shark Reef
Mhm.
who are assistants and they have biology degrees, and so they're called naturalists or they're aquarists where they have a lot of experience, and then they go
Wow.
on. So the field of veterinary medicine is immense. People who work in rehabilitation centers, people who work in pounds
Mhm.
where they help with the pets and unfortunately sometimes put pets to sleep. So it's a huge field, right? So it'd be like medical field. It isn't just the doctor and the nurse. There's
Mhm.
people in the labs and the techs and
So it's
it's
kind of just like running a hospital, to be
it is.
honest.
Yeah.
I mean, because you have your surgical nurses, you have your CNAs, you have your LPNs. I mean, to
Mhm.
me, it sounds like the veterinarian hospitals are ran exactly like the hospital,
They are probably just smaller, right?
just
So
on a smaller
yeah,
scale.
yeah, yeah.
Wow, wow! I didn't. Now that I'm learning because I did not know you had the tech nurse, the vet assistant nurse. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So this is good stuff for me too, so that I can share with Jess. Wow, that's good. Thank you so much for that, Doc. And you say you had 15 staff members there to assist
50,
you.
550.
Oh,
Yeah.
50.
Hmm.
Wow.
Hmm.
I thought he said 15. 50. That's amazing. So you guys are a big office.
Yes.
Yes. Wow. And here's my last question for you, Doc. Can you tell us about your job at the Shark Reef and what other jobs are available at the Shark Reef?
So Shark Reef, everybody knows it. If they don't, it's at the Mandalay Bay.
Don't.
Yeah, yeah. So, it's a pretty unique thing. So it's an aquarium. It's an inlet aquarium. So lots of aquariums are on the ocean.
Mhm,
Like Monterey Bay we know of, and that's next to the ocean. It's
mhm.
unique to have a large aquarium in the middle of the desert. Uh,
Yes.
um, Typical Las Vegas, they did a big aquarium, and it's done exactly right. It has many awards for how nice it is and how we take care of the animals there. And
Wow.
so while the veterinarian who I am, I have a separate company where 3 or 4 of us veterinarians are constantly available for them. Those are like any animal, they need care too, and those
Mhm,
care could be preventative health care and making sure that whatever is going on, they don't get sick. And particularly in an
mhm,
aquarium setting, you're looking at the herd, which is the entire tank. So if there's a bad disease in a tank, it
mhm.
could wipe out everybody in the tank. um, Whether it's a parasite or something like that, or bad water quality. Remember, we're
Mhm,
making seawater, and that's not easy to do. And then they are just like anything else. They can get liver problems, skin problems, eye problems, fin problems, just like all of us, organ problems, liver problems, etc. And
wow.
then last but not least, at the Shark, it's a predator tank. So realize these animals eat each other for a living, right? So that's their instinct. So to swim, to eat, and to reproduce, right?
Mhm.
And so whether it's the Komodo dragon or the crocodiles or the eels or the sharks. I mean,
And you
they're
have all that in the Shark
sure
Reef?
you need to go, and
Wow.
yeah, and so they all get your own set of unique problems, and they're very different. Meaning that um, I've never worked on a panda, but it's a mammal,
Mhm,
and I'm going to tell you that I could tell you an awful lot about it, even though I've never worked on one, because it's a mammal. But sharks and sea urchins and Komodo dragons, they're so unique that it's really
mhm,
a super duper subspecialty. And while
mhm,
there's not a lot of us in the world that do
mhm.
that, we share our information, so we're a tight knit group, and that when we do something, we make sure that everybody else in the aquarium world or the zoo world knows about it. And we'd say the same for zoo vets. We don't have a zoo here, but they would be treating lots of exotic animals. And so, and even if you look at that as a veterinarian, I'm a small cog in the wheel on taking care of these animals. You have to have people who they call aquarists. They can have aquarists. They can have biology backgrounds. Those people have worked in aquariums for lots of years and have great, not just education, but experience. And they have to feed them. They have to recognize diseases. I'm not there every day. So
because you have to run your facility.
Yeah. So they need to recognize that shark's swimming faster or slower, or gilling harder, which is breathing, gilling, or anything, and so we rely, just like a dog, I rely on the owner to know that dog best and tell me what they noticed. Okay. And while I can help a lot from there, but it needs, and it's a partnership. And so
being detailed.
Yeah. And then things behind the scenes you don't see about a place like the Shark Reef is realize that somebody is working mechanical. Somebody's making sure that all the pumps and the filters are working right. So that's a mechanically oriented person. That's life and death for them. If those aquariums aren't working right, that's a big deal. And then there's people who are, they call them naturalists, I think. And those are people who, that might explain the exhibit to somebody that's walking by and tell them a little bit more about that animal, and maybe they help check in tickets and stuff like that too. They may not be feeding the animals, but they can tell people a little bit about them more than what they can read. So it's a big operation.
Somebody really can look at that tank just by standing there, looking through the water, can see if the animals are sick or not.
Well, sometimes it's obvious and sometimes it's not. Just like you look very healthy to me, and it doesn't mean you don't have something. I can't tell if you have heart. I can't tell if you have heart disease, right? But if you were real dull and lethargic, and I know you as something better, I would recognize there's something wrong with you, or maybe you're scratching an awful lot. If you're a fish, maybe you're swimming along the bottom and scratching your sides, or maybe your fins don't look so good, or you're not acting good, and stuff like that, or you're not eating as well as you used to with the same vigor. So those are all just little tip-offs. So those are all visual. So I may be needed to take a blood test or do an ultrasound or surgery. We do all those on sharks too. But it starts with observation.
That's amazing, Doc. You are phenomenal.
No,
I did not know. You're educating me, so I'm so excited that I'll be able to share this with my students tomorrow. I know.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Amy, go for it. Yes.
Doc Yach, this is so cool.
I know, I'm super excited.
Yeah, I have a question. Are there one of the activities that our students are encouraged to do is to volunteer, just to give back to their community, and also they meet lots of people and they find, something that might interest them. Are there opportunities to volunteer with animals that you're aware of in Las Vegas?
I mean, there's tons of them. The biggest problem that I'll started with is COVID. So COVID's we have such high biosecurity standards, and 90% of veterinary clinics aren't even allowing the clients to come in the building. They drop their pets in the parking lot. We are not that kind. We bring pets we bring owners and pets into an exam room. We don't use our lobbies, and they stay in that exam room until they're ready to leave. They don't go anywhere else. So we can keep them clean and keep them safe and keep us safe. And it's imperative that we keep our staff safe, right? Or otherwise we couldn't do what we do. So, but inevitably, in normal times, which is going to be soon, right? So
vaccination.
Yeah. So yes, I can't speak for it's on an individual basis. I mean, I can tell you that our hospital does volunteers. Like we have people come in for a few hours and they shadow employees and stuff like that, just to get an idea, especially ones around the career path, because you know, this may sound great, but until you get behind the scenes, is it something that turns you on, you know, or you know, or not? So most places do offer volunteers, and I would, no, I can't say most places. I can say we do, and there are places who offer that. And it just, the problem is COVID right now. But beyond that, yeah, and it's just high school to college, and then we have veterinary students who do formal, you know, things. So we go anywhere from, I think they have to be 16 years of age and up because of I don't know, something. It's insurance thing. Some
Probably
hospitals
Nevada
won't,
laws.
yeah, some people won't do it because they don't want, you know, they just don't want anybody in there. And
Mhm.
you know what? That's probably not a place that somebody should go volunteer at. If they don't want anybody in there, then maybe you shouldn't choose that place. But it's kind of neat. And most people will come, and they might come on a Saturday and for a couple hours, and it may be rocking busy or, you know, whatever. And you just gotta sit back and watch and just stay safe. Yeah.
And get your hands in there.
At least your eyes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's terrific. You know, I don't really have any other specific questions, but certainly if our students do, can I email you the questions if they come up while we're presenting?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Doc Yach, we thank you so much. Again, we can't thank you enough for your time, because we know
Nope.
you're busy, but we really appreciate you for giving us a tour of your life and of the fabulous veterinarian world out there at that Shark Reef. I'm going to get out there one day. I don't know. I think I have a fear for aquariums. I know I have a fear. It's a fear.
You should just
It's
stay
a
on the dry
fear.
side. You'll be fine.
I don't know. And you just told me you got a big shark in there. I don't know, Doc. One day.
He's right behind his shoulder.
Is that the
Is
shark?
that a shark right behind your shoulder?
Yeah.
Is that the one that's at the reef? At the reef?
That is, no, that's a.
Oh, okay. I said no, I definitely will not go.
Oh, good, because they're even bigger at the reef.
Yeah, no. But now one more question. Can you walk past without going into the actual aquarium room? Can you peek? I have a claustrophobic. So if I'm in that thing and I see nothing but water,
I would say you will do fine.
I will do fine.
It
Okay, I'm gonna take your word on that, Doc.
It starts as like a big jungle, and then it
Okay.
it gets a little bit more. And believe me, you stay on the non-water side of the glass.
Okay. I'm going to take your word for that. I'm going to stay on the non-water side. Again, thank you. Do you have any questions for us?
No, I just say, you know, for the kids, it doesn't really matter any field. You know, get a passion for whatever you want to do, and put effort into it, and think about who you're going to be and what you want to be 5 and 10 years from now. You don't have to have the answers, but just have the right, you know, a path that says maybe you want to have a family, maybe you want to have a good job, you want to own a house, and you know, and so on and so, be able to go on vacation, and you start thinking about, like, you know, what can I do to get there? And it's little steps. You don't, it's not buying a lottery ticket one day and getting it all one day. It's I am who I am because I took one little step after another.
One step at a time.
Yeah.
Step. Can't bite an apple all at once. One bite at a time.
Yep.
That's it.
Well, thank you so much, Doc Yach. We appreciate you.
You're welcome. You guys have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Miss Amber, I will see you tomorrow to share this with our students.
Yes, thank you so much. You're super awesome. And
thank you. You guys have a nice evening.
You too.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.